Hey, this is Ralph. In this video I want to continue working on this flexible boxes layout that Apple is using for their website. So where we left off in the previous video, did a little bit of basic HTML, just setting up the parent container, a div for the big box, and a div for the 4 promo boxes, and just a little bit of CSS, a reset rule in setting the flexibility of that container. I'm going to adjust some of these numbers just before we finish up, but one of the critical things was the max width of 1440 and the min width of 1024. Some of these other characteristics are here really just so you could see the work in progress. Now, before I turned on the recorder here in between the two videos, I went out to Flickr and found some photos that I could use as examples, kind of like Apple has photos on these backgrounds here. But let's check out some useful piece of information. I'm going to go ahead and max out Apple's layout. And I used my little measure it tool here, and I just wanted to kind of point something out to you. When their site is maxed out, these images are approximately 360 pixels wide. Okay, and notice it's about 197, let's say 200 pixels tall. So 360 by 200. If I take it down to the minimum, we'll notice that once again the height is only about 200 pixels. So the site flexes in width but not in height. Okay, so these images basically change from about 250 to 360, but their height is the same. I'd also like to point this out, and you'll notice it if you focus really carefully. Put all of your attention actually over here on this iPhone 5S photo, and especially on this right edge. You'll see as I stretch the web page out, you're actually seeing more of the photo. The photo isn't really changing size, you're just seeing more of it. You can also see it kind of a little bit on the woman over here on the far right. When the site is measured down, you can't see any of this blue in the background of the photo. But as it gets wider, you can start to see more of this. Okay? So what's going on here is they're using background images on these 4 little divs, and the background image is centered horizontally within the promo box, within this box. So you can see more of the background image when it's wider, less of the background image when it's narrower. I just want to kind of stress that because that's going to be how we do our own page. All right. So back over to our code. And what I need to do now is work with the CSS. I mentioned before the HTML is pretty much done. By the way, I do have some image credits in here, and I'll add links to this before I do the final publish and stuff. So let's go ahead and take care of the styles. Okay, so I'm going to jump down here and I'm going to create a rule for the big box. And not a lot of stuff to write in here, but I am going to put in the height, and the height is actually about 530 pixels. I didn't show you when I checked that, but I just checked it a little bit ago. The height's about 530, whereas the height for our promo boxes is about 200. So I'm going to go ahead and put the height in there, and I'll go ahead and put in a background image. Let's see, this is in my images folder, photos folder, and then I've got one, what is it called? Yes, landscape 1440.jpg. In between recordings, I also did take a moment and I went to my image editor and I took the images that I found, I went and sized them appropriately. So my big image is sized to 1440, and I sized some of these other photos to about 360 pixels wide, which is the width of the promo boxes at their widest. Okay. Basically, it allows me to minimize the size and the file size of the background images. Alright, so we've got that taken care of there. And I'm going to do something similar for each of the promo boxes. I do need to give the promo boxes a little bit of unique characteristic though, unique identifier, because they're all going to have different background images. Okay, so I've put in a few things here, and I needed to uniquely identify each of my promo boxes for their background images. So just to kind of recap here, big box I've set for a height of 530 pixels, and I've given it its background image. For all of my promo boxes, they're 25% wide because I want them to taking up a quarter of the width of the screen. I set their height to be 200 pixels. That's what I checked at the beginning of our tutorial here today. And I put in a min width, even though this really isn't necessary. In fact, I'll take that out. And I do want to float them to the left, okay? So the floating left is going to get those promo boxes side by side, and of course each one has its own unique background image. Let me go ahead and save, head to our browser and refresh, and you'll see that we're starting to get the layout. Ooh, you know that red border, let's get rid of a few things here. Originally I put the width of 98% just to make things a little easier to see. I'm going to go back to 100%, and we no longer need that border now, so I can save that, refresh, and now we have our state here. Oops, let me go back to that browser. So if my browser is narrow, at one point I'm going to hit, when I get to that 1024, I get that horizontal scroll, and when I go a little bit wider, of course they max out at a certain point, and then you just see more white space on the left and the right. Okay, so that is the basics right there. I'm going to do one quick thing. I just want to show you some background positioning here so I can see a different segment of this photo up at the top. Actually, I kind of like the 4 images at the bottom. You can see those working. But on my big box background, I'm going to go ahead and do background position, and 50% is going to be the XY. This is going to make sure that the background image is centered horizontally, and then space, and then vertically. I think what I'm going to do here is I'll put in, let's try 50-50. It could be acceptable, right? So there we go. So we have kind of our 5 images layout, not terribly different than what they have over in Apple. And of course in Apple they've got some individual text on these boxes, but you could do that pretty easily.